Defense mechanisms are unconscious psychological processes that we use to cope with difficult or uncomfortable situations that can help us protect our self-esteem, reduce stress, and avoid emotional pain. Now, by understanding the different defense mechanisms, we can become more aware of our own tendencies to use them and recognize when we are using them in an unhealthy way. We can also better understand other people's behaviors and motives, which can improve our relationships and communication with others. However, since defense mechanisms can also lead to unhealthy patterns of behavior and prevent us from dealing with our problems in a constructive way, being aware of defense mechanisms can help us develop healthier coping mechanisms and lead a more fulfilling life. In this video, I'll be letting you know about some of the defense mechanisms that different people use to deal with stress. I am Maria and welcome to my space.
Denial of reality is a defense mechanism in which an individual refuses to accept or acknowledge the existence of a certain aspect of reality that is too painful, unpleasant, or anxiety-provoking to confront.
Now, in this case, a person who has been diagnosed with a terminal illness might deny the reality of their situation and also refuse to accept that they are dying. These people will continue to plan for their future, and also they will avoid talking about their situation or their illness despite the prognosis.
Reaction formation is a psychological defense mechanism in which a person expresses the opposite of their true feelings or impulses in order to cope with or manage anxiety, guilt, or other uncomfortable emotions.
John is attracted to James, but John is raised in a society that is very much against same-sex relationships. Now, to deal with his guilt, shame, and discomfort, John decides to adopt to a public stance that is vehemently against homosexuality or same-sex relationships, right? He might also go out of his way to express his opposition against same-sex relationships or gay rights, even though his stance seems to contradict his true feelings. This is a perfect example of reaction formation because John is actually expressing the opposite of what he truly feels.
Identification is a coping mechanism in which a person identifies with someone else, often a role model or someone they admire, in order to cope with a situation or to feel better about themselves. In other words, one tries to raise his own self-esteem by partnering his behavior after the behavior of another person.
A good example of identification is between the boss and the supervisor plus the workers, right? So, but basically this is between the supervisor and the boss. Now, when the supervisor looks at the boss talking to the workers and him commanding the respect, him commanding the discipline around the whole place, you know, his ways, the way he talks, the way he walks, the way he commands the respect, he wants that, he loves that. So when he's away, the supervisor will still come out to the workers and still do the same thing. Work like how the boss works, talk like how the boss talks, and also sometimes even put on or wear certain things that the boss wears, just for him to have that confidence, for him to, you know, also command that respect that the boss receives.
Emotional insulation is a coping mechanism where a person protects themselves from emotional pain by shutting down their emotions or limiting their ability to connect with others on an emotional level.
Imagine someone who has been hurt in the past relationships or has trouble trusting other people, right? These people can consciously or unconsciously choose to limit their emotional vulnerability, and they can choose to distance themselves from friends or even potential partners, right? These people can also choose not to have deep conversations. This could possibly be because they do not want to experience potential hurt or something that they have experienced before, right? That caused them hurt.
Fantasy is just about daydreaming or imaginations that allow one to escape from the real world.
A perfect example of fantasy can be, let's say for example, you're in your kafunda, you're in your one room, and then you just look around and you're like, ah, man, this life, eh? And then all of a sudden you're like, man, if I get money, I'm out of this place, man. You start imagining, like, when you have money, you're in a mansion, you have everything that you want. Tomorrow when you get the money, you go out partying the whole week, you're back to the same fantasy. Or even someone who is in an abusive relationship, they really believe that next time if he tries to beat me, I'm gonna beat him. But when the guy comes, it's just beating you up like hell, man. It's not good, of course, to stay in abusive relationships. But when you fantasize about beating him up and you don't, man, that's crazy, man.
Rationalization is a coping mechanism that people use to justify or explain away behavior, thoughts, or feelings that may otherwise be difficult to accept. Now, in this case, one justifies his inconsistent, undesirable behavior by thinking up explanations which on the surface seem logical, but when examined are illogical.
So imagine someone who has just lost their job. Someone has just lost their job, just like that, it's gone. Instead of acknowledging the sadness and probably the fear that comes with it, the person just starts saying statements that are literally not serious, right? starts using rationalization as a coping mechanism. He starts saying things like, anyway, the company was actually going downhill. Right? It's good that I'm out of that place. I didn't really like the job anyway. It's good that I'm out of there. Anyway, also the working place smells. I didn't like the working place. They can't even renovate chairs. They can't even renovate the place. It's really not a good place to work in. Man, I'm out of that place. Those people treated us that they were helping us, but they were really helping you. You got a job there because you needed help. You needed money. That's rationalization for you.
Regression is a psychological defense mechanism that involves retreating to an earlier developmental stage in the face of stressful or difficult situation. In other words, one returns or turns back to reaction patterns he has long since outgrown.
So this is a perfect example of regression. Now, let's say John. John was a drunkard, like a huge drunkard, and he had nothing really going on in his life. Like, he was just a drunkard and that's it. So John decides to quit after years, after years of being one, right? He decides to quit, like completely quits. Of course, he quit in bits, but he completely quits, right? His life is back on track. He gets a job, and then he gets his good girlfriend, fiancé probably, and then life goes on. It's really good, right? So after some time, the fiancé is like, you know what? I do not want this anymore. I quit. I do not want to be in this anymore. Probably something happened in the relationship. So the chick quits, right? John gets so frustrated. And what does he turn to? Back to alcohol. He goes back to his old ways, and he thinks he has really nothing to live for, right? So he goes back to being a drunkard.
Conversion is a coping mechanism where one has emotional conflict expressed in muscular, sensory, or bodily symptoms of disability, malfunctioning, or pain.
So, for conversion, let's see, a marketing department of a certain company has been requested to present something to the board of governors, right? To see the progress of the company, how things are moving and all that. So after so much research, everything else, they're ready for the presentation. Go in, present, and immediately after the presentation, the boss is like, well, you've done nothing. What is this? What have you shown us? There's not been any progress ever since we had the last meeting. So what is this? There's nothing you've done. And every other person on the board of governors, presentation also says, I don't see any progress too. What is this? What are they doing? So as a presenter, the distress that you have after the presentation is then converted into a headache. Sometimes others really do have like heart attacks, right? Sometimes others feel pain anywhere on their bodies. The distress is turned into pain on any part of the body.
In this coping mechanism of overcompensation, a person covers up a weakness by overemphasizing some desirable characteristic or making up for frustration in one area by over gratification in another area.
Let's say Anne. When Anne is stressed, she'll go out and shop. Like shop, and shop everything that she loves, everything that she wants, and when she's done shopping and back home, she's no longer stressed. Scenario 2, when Anne is very stressed, everything is stressing her out. She'll just order food, or cook a lot of food for her to just eat and feel good about that. Yeah, and after that, she's no longer stressed. That's overcompensation.
In this defense mechanism, one can't direct impulses at the appropriate target. Hence, he directs his impulses at a substitute target. In other words, one redirects his own feelings or impulses from their original source to a substitute target that is less threatening or easier to deal with.
So, let's say you're at work, right? And you're angry, you're frustrated because of these unreasonable demands at work. And you cannot express your anger to your boss. You cannot talk back to your boss because you have that fear of losing your job, right? So what you do with all the frustration and all the anger that you have, you carry it straight to your home. So you carry all that anger and frustration to your home or to your family, to your partner, and then start picking fights over minor issues, and you're just moody around everybody, around anything that's around you, like you're just moody, right? So in this case, the individual is actually displacing their original anger to a safer target rather than expressing it to their boss, which could have negative consequences.
In this coping mechanism, one has a tendency to actively or passively resist or oppose suggestions or requests from others to express negative thoughts or feelings, or to adopt a pessimistic outlook on life.
So let's say someone has been diagnosed with a chronic disease, right? And it is difficult for them to participate in the activities that they used to enjoy, right? So they might feel frustrated and powerless, and they might begin to adopt a negative attitude about their situation, right? They might resist suggestions from other people to try new medications or to try out any other physical activities that they could adapt to because of their situation, because they believe that these things are not going to help them anyway, or they're not going to make them feel better anyway. So they might start to express negative feelings and thoughts about their life, and they might start saying, I'll never get better. This is too hard. Why bother trying?
Ritualistic behavior can refer to any repetitive or structured behavior that is performed in a consistent manner. It can be some little act performed by the individual magically that he thinks will make everything turn out all right.
Yeah, so this one is quite like almost everyone has done it, right? So have you ever been in a scenario whereby you were moving out and then you're like, I don't think I put the gas out. I don't think I switched up. I don't think I switched up all the lights. I don't think everything is off. So you come back and then check everything. You check everything just to make sure. And once you've done that, your stress is gone, your worries are gone, right? And then still the same scenario, like you lock your door while you're going out, and then in just a few minutes or even seconds, you're like, I might not have closed the door. I need to go back. I need to go back and so you go back and really check, right? So this one is also another scenario is like for mothers. For mothers, checking their babies whether they're still breathing. You know, it's tricky for her. It was really tricky for me too, but I also see it with other mothers. Like you really have to check. Like some babies really, not some babies really sleep a lot, right? So you have to be checking whether your child is still awake. Is she still breathing? Is she okay? You know, that is it.